Today, I'm going to talk about what I'm preparing for, because in the last video, I talked about my journey from homelessness to becoming a prepper. And there are very many different categories that people fit into, whether it be I'm just preparing for a natural disaster all the way up to doomsday preppers. I have not through intent become a doomsday prepper. I'm going to be talking about how I became a doomsday prepper, one, and two, I'm going to be sharing the reasons why and what preparations I'm making. Because here's the thing: if you're preparing for SHTF, what you're preparing for is a specific scenario, but you're taking a shot in the dark. If you have somebody that you know gives accurate information, so my great uncle, he was part of the remote viewing project. He was an army psychic. He says, hey, this is how you tell if you come across a psychic. And he gave me the tips and to be able to tell if somebody was really a psychic or if they were somebody that was just wearing a mask, not really doing it. There's a lot of people like that out there, and most of those are the ones that are doing it for money. A real psychic does not really want to come up and tell you what's going on, because if they do, it's because it's haunting them as they come across you when they see what it is that they see. And so they're not doing it for money, and they're doing it more as a warning and to give themselves their own peace, because those that are psychic actually carry around a big burden. This is something I learned from my great uncle. But because of him, I was able to come across a couple of people. One is Billy Meyer and the other one's a blind psychic. And these are the two that have really pushed me in the direction to tell me what to prepare for. What is the scenario I need to prepare for? Now, the one thing by the blind psychic that really stuck home with me, because it collaborated with something that Billy Meyer said, was that our last president would be a black president. I hope I read that right. And if you look at our last 2-3 elections now, the country is so divided that after once Trump was elected, half the country refused to listen and started doing everything they could to undermine him, versus what we traditionally went through, which is, okay, we had an election, the best guy won, now let's all come together because we're Americans, we're not Republicans and we're not Democrats. But with the election of Donald Trump, it drove a division, even though in some ways he tried to not have that division. He tried to unite the country, but then you also have Joe Biden, who did everything he could to destroy the country, and now you have Donald Trump. So the last legitimate president we had was Barack Obama, because he was the last president that everybody was able to come into agreement of that he was the commander in chief. He was the guy in charge, whether you liked him or not. He was the guy in charge. Okay, so Billy Meyer gives a prediction that says that there will be 2 civil wars in America. They will be back to back, and at least one of them will be an armed conflict. So what does that mean? Well, with what's going on politically, you guys can definitely see the makings of a political civil war. In my opinion, we've been in a political civil war since 2020. And when the Democrats won and Joe Biden came into office, what he did to his political opponents was something that necessarily was unconventional or outside of the norm for what every president did. It does not. Every president does that in a small way. I mean, Barack Obama used the IRS to go after to go after conservatives. Conservatives have done the same thing. I mean, that's part of what gerrymandering's all about, is the conservatives trying to gerrymander a little bit more territory, so that, because to them it is a war that's going on. It's a political war. It's a war of words. But the thing is, when people start treating it like a religion, it starts becoming more and more volatile. I mean, look at all the religious wars we've had throughout history. My God is better than your God. The R is better than the D is better than the R. And everybody gets caught up in this until all of a sudden, mob mentality comes in, and now you have an armed conflict. I think that what will end up happening, because what Billy Meyer also says about this, from what I've read, is that what will cause the United States to be no more, we will split into 5 separate countries, is that we will realize the corruption within our government and that there is no way to be able to fix it. And so therefore we will dismantle the government. And that is what the purpose of the Second Civil War will be about, is because we're trying to correct the corruption, but the corruption runs so deep that the only way to get rid of it is to destroy and start new. But we are so divided as a country that we will go into, as what Billy Meyer says, we will go into 5 separate countries. So you must be prepared for civil unrest. You must be prepared for the possibility of an economic collapse here in the States. Even worse, a global economic collapse, because that is something that was warned about as well, is that we will have a global economic collapse. And with what happened during the last administration to really devalue the American prestige that was seen abroad, did a lot to give those that wanted to get out from under the thumb of the dollar. It gave them the opportunity to go into BRICS, and that's why we're dealing with Canada and Mexico, because Mexico's already in BRICS, and I think Canada has applied. Lots of European nations are starting to apply. The American dollar is no more. And what happens when you do a change? There's always going to be a cataclysm, whether it erupts into a global war, which means that we will have nuclear exchange between 3 of the top superpowers. What does that mean? That means the whole northern hemisphere will be completely contaminated. And what about the southern hemisphere? From what I understand, from what I have read, is that the southern hemisphere is where most of the strife and wars and stuff like that are happening in the world. For some reason, the southern hemisphere is the militant and the northern hemisphere is the more peaceful and civilized. And so if you decide, oh, I want to go down to the southern hemisphere, well, you're not escaping it. You're just trading one form of misery for another misery. So what kind of things can you do to be able to prepare for something like this? Where is all of this coming? And how 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if I would have said this, people would have told me I was a conspiracy theorist and that I was a crackpot and all that stuff. Now people see the writing on the wall and they're like, yeah, I can see that. But for the longest time, I was told that I was a crackpot. But how do you prepare for something like this? There's nowhere to escape. You even holding your land is going to be hard because you're going to have marauders, you're going to have desperate people that are hungry. How many lives are you willing to take? And how many, because from anybody that's ever taken a life that I've ever talked to, when you take that life goes with you. It doesn't just, expire. That voice is always going to continue to haunt you. And how many of those hauntings are you willing to have just to be able to keep to keep a piece of land? And then at one point, if you're willing to go that far, are you a sociopath? Are you somebody that we should be definitely worried about? And you might think that that's a good thing, but no. If society is going to be brought down to an extinction level event, which is what a global war coupled with a global economic collapse, coupled with the ruling superpower, the sole ruling superpower, completely crumbling from within and dividing itself, what kind of cataclysms do you think the world is going to go through? And it's going to be a restructuring of the order. You're going to be going after one side's going to be going after the other side. And so that's what you're really going to have to worry about. And how do you survive something like that? Part of the reason why I chose Arizona is, again, because I've read some of the Billy Meyer stuff. And again, I'd recommend reading it. Even if you don't go for the other stuff, at least look at the predictions, because it will at least give you some semblance of what we have in store for us, because this guy has a historically alarming accuracy rate. Okay, I mean, everything he says does. Okay, and so therefore, until something that he says doesn't, I'm gonna follow that, because I learned from my uncle, just be careful. That's always gonna be in the unlikely place. And so being here at 6,500 feet gives me an opportunity to really to be above any blast radius, any blast zone, because there's 2 military bases, 3 military bases. I think you've got Area 51, which is in New Mexico. That's probably about 150, 200 miles from me. Then you've got Fort Irwin, you've got 29 Palms. Okay, all of those are right within the vicinity, but the thing is, those are all at low elevations, and the wind here comes in from the South Pacific. So that means that some of the radiation is going to make it, but it's not going to make it over the hill or over the mountains because of just the way it is. And this will be an area where you can definitely survive and make it through, but you should always be planning to be on the lam, to be bugging out, to have your inch bag, because there's only going to be so long that you can hold your land before it is no longer fortifiable, or the cost is too high to where you figure it's better to migrate, because the average person is not going to just get up and leave. They're going to wait until maybe it might become fatal, and then they will leave. So instead of building a bug out bag like you think you need, you should be building an I'm never coming home bag. And being homeless, being out on trails and rails for the last 2 years, if you watch a lot of my content, you'll be able to see that. But that's what we're going to be preparing for, getting this property fortified in various ways. Not only that it can support me so that I can eat in the event that I cannot afford anything, because let's say everything goes down. Let's say an EMP goes over the proxy server for the whole United States. We have no internet. Either that or it becomes the dark web. And then how do you get yourself going? You have to be prepared to lose everything. And what it is that you have on hand needs to be able to get you through. So having tools that will make you money should be part of your gear. Having a good sleep system that is versatile should be the key to what it is that you have. You should choose in certain things like a backpack. You should choose weight over durability, because quite frankly all this stuff is not really going to last that long, and if you get some patches you could work it out just fine. Okay, so this is what I have to offer to you guys. This is what I'm prepping for. I hope you guys are and I've been prepping for this for a long time, or at least moving in the right direction. When I started my janitorial business, I was hoping that I would have already been at this stage, owned my land, so if I lost my business, I still had a place to go. But things never worked out that way, and I always thought that things were out of reach. But the truth is, if you are truly seeking it, the path will make itself clear to you. So thanks for being here, guys. I hope to see you in the next video.